Ironman 2023, 70.3 Luxembourg, June 18th, 2023. Unfortunately, the athlete guide is still not available. I really wish we could go back to the time where Ironman would post the athlete guide at least 40 days in advance, but here we are. So we're going to be rocking and rolling through course specifics only, and when they do post that athlete guide, we will be able to kind of amend this and update some things there. But make sure you read that athlete guide whenever it comes out. Ironman Luxembourg 70.3. Please update it. It's 3 weeks away. So this is the swim. This is a one-loop swim. This is our start area that we have right here, and it is a rolling start area. So you're going to line up in corrals with the faster swimmers in the front, slower swimmers in the back, and they're going to have times that mark out how fast you are predicted to go. Make sure you line up in the correct corral for you, maybe one ahead of your projected time, so you can kind of get a little bit of a drafting benefit from additional athletes there. Immediately, you're going to start out here. You're going to take a right-hand turn. There's most likely going to be a buoy located right there that you have to go around on the right-hand side, traveling down all the way to the bottom, and then you have a long stretch all the way up top where you hook back around, back towards the finish area. This body of water is moving a little bit, so there will be some potential for some current effects here. They are going to hopefully do this at the time of in between currents, kind of the slackest point in time, but just be prepared that that might not always be the case there. So once you get there on race week, make sure you evaluate what's happening on race day or close to it. But going back to the start here, what you're going to happen is there's going to be a huge backlog of athletes right here. Anytime you have a short little hook like this right after the start, there's just going to be a pile of athletes. And this pile probably is not going to start thinning out, believe it or not, until about this point out on the race course here. Once you get to that point there, then you're going to have some open water available to you after you get through here. So once you get to where that arrow starts, it will start to thin out. Make sure you're finding your group of people at this point in time and really allow them to push or pull you all the way to this turn buoy down here. Now, after you do this, anytime you do have this 180-degree turn on a race course, there's going to be some people like boats and crafts and things preventing you from going back on other competitors right through here. So don't be alarmed about that, okay? The biggest issue that you're going to have is the actual turn itself, and it's not going to be like a traditional turn. It's going to be more of a turn, and then a turn, and then a turn again before you get out over here to where you have some open water. There is going to be people here preventing you from swimming all the way over to the shore on this side, so don't worry about that either. And there's going to be people mixed in the middle as well to prevent you from swimming on each other again. Now, going back to this turn here, this turn is going to mess a lot of people up, and it's exactly what I just said. It's kind of 3 turns in one at this point, and don't get too caught up in things. Follow the people in front of you. Again, remember, it's a U-turn. Okay, don't overthink it. Don't over complicate it. It is a U-turn. Follow someone through this turn, and if they do stop, just swim around them and keep going. Again, some errors aren't going to cost you here at this point in time in the race. Now, after you get through out here, once this arrow ends right about here in this little spot right here, that is going to be the point in time where you have to be with a group of people, or else you're going to be losing out on some time. Once you get through this major half-point section of the race, again, there's going to be a major shakeup whether you are a podium runner or someone in the general pack here. From this halfway point to this other turn buoy right through here, this might be a lonely stretch for you. This is a great time to swim your pace. Again, if you are swimming with a group of people, a herd, make sure that you are not in the lead at this point in time. If you want to make the jump between a group and another, I would argue that this is the last time to do it. But in reality, it's probably from this area to this area right through here. And after you get about this halfway point, you're kind of with the group that you're going to finish. And any longer that you wait to make that jump, the costs far outweigh the benefits. It's because if you really put the hammer down on someone and you come out of the water a minute ahead of them at the swim, great, it's a minute. You did all that extra work for 60 additional seconds, and chances are it's probably going to be less if you wait until later on in this race. Again, one more turn here. It's going to be a 1, 2, and then a 3 turn around this buoy right through here. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Again, it's going to be what it is, and that's going to be a point where there is a further thinning out of the crowd, especially right at this point right after the turn buoy. After this point in time, you are going to, again, probably have a lonelier stretch here, or if you're around a group of people, hang on to that group of people. There is going to be a slowing down. There typically is right around this point in time during the race. Again, this is an opportunity where I would argue that it might be beneficial to go to the front of that group if you are in one, or if not, just maintain your pace. You're going to leapfrog a lot of individuals who, for whatever reason, start to cite an additional amount once they get closer to that finish line. Again, we do have one last finish line hook, which is located right there, and you have to probably swim around a buoy right there to keep it on the right-hand side of you. Once you start to get to that area that I just mentioned, where you are able to leapfrog a lot of individuals, you need to start kicking your feet because it's going to be ready to rock and roll very, very quickly. Transition, once you get out of here, it is not a terrible transition here. It is a little bit of a jog for sure, but it's not a super long transition here. Do your stuff, change, get on the bike, and then you're going to head out on that top left-hand corner for the bike. So let's talk about the bike now, and we have some specifics that we need to dish about. So this is the bike course right here, and again, something that's really cool about this race is it's a one-loop bike course. So this is the bike course as it's laid out on Ironman's website. Of course, let's go and dive into things a little bit deeper here. You can see that from the first 25 miles, which I will highlight here, that is going to account for 590, let's call it 600 feet of the elevation gain over the course of this race of your 2,500 feet elevation gain. Something that is not super noticeable here, and I'll zoom in a little bit more on some of these mile sections here once we start to get a little bit lumpy, is this is not a throwaway area. Yeah, the terrain it's not as aggressive as the main drags, the main talking points, which are obviously these 12 miles right through here with the 1,300 of 2,500 feet of gain, right? But these areas are not throwaways by any means. You're going to have some lumps and bumps mixed in at this point in time, and how you attack these first 25 miles is going to largely dictate how your race goes. So if we watch that cursor, we go up, and then we also turn around at this point in time, and we go back down. So up until this point right through here, this 16 miles, you're probably going to have a tailwind. Most likely, this will be the case. Afterwards, then we start to have a headwind or a cross headwind, which will make things very, very difficult before we make that right-hand turn, and we are officially climbing up. So for these first 16 miles, let's dive back in here. This is our tailwind section, and you can see it's very lumpy and bumpy, so the terrain is going to create that variance for you. You don't need to go out of your way to create that like on a flatter course, okay? So a lot of that simulated work that you have to do is going to be created for you right through here. This is going to be a great opportunity to blow your legs if you want a really, really fast bike split, okay? These first 16 miles, again, are in that tailwind, so you have the potential to go very fast here. Yes, you do. And in some cases, it will be easy, depending on the weather, as if it changes in between now and then. So what you need to be doing is allow the course to do the work for you here. Hit your targets, hit your power numbers, watch them on some of these uphill gradients. Again, it shouldn't last for an aggressive amount of time, but there will be hills mixed in here, of course. This is a perfect opportunity to stand at a couple places for you, as long as you keep it under that 5-10 second barrier. That shouldn't be an issue here, and that might actually help your legs wake up a little bit as we get closer and closer. So once we get back here, we are dropping back down, and if I could highlight, that'd be great, to this next section here, which is a little calmer right here, believe it or not. But again, we still have these lumps and bumps mixed in. For these 9 miles, we do have 230 feet of elevation gain. So again, it's not a throwaway day either. These are going to be hills that might be a little more than you want them to be, but they're not going to be a lot. The main battle that you're going to have at this point in time is going to be other people and the wind, okay? People are going to be chasing you. This is a major out and back course, so there's going to be people everywhere at this point in time. Egos are going to be flying. Check them at the door, because we are about to go up the major part of the hill, or excuse me, of the course. So from here, once we make that right-hand turn, we do go on the main circle of our race course. And this blue section is what you get here. So this is the section that everybody's talking about, 1,300 feet of gain over the course of these 11 miles. This is going to be the point in time where you will be able to get people back. This is going to be the point in time where you can ruin your race. Okay, so how you manage that is going to be based on your power targets that are up on your plan. Okay, ride within your limits, right? And I'm going to back out again one last time so we can get a great overview of the course here. The areas where you do, or when you can, let's go to our time analysis section here. The areas where you are going to be able to save the most in this section, look, you're going to save let's call 2.5 seconds here if you bump it up by 1% at mile, let's call 27, once the terrain gets very, very steep. And aside from that, over the course of this section, you're not saving a ton of time. If you bump it up by 5% here, then, yep, it starts to climb up a little bit more, but even 5% here, you're saving, let's call it 7.5 seconds there, and through here, another 6 seconds, and then the major one that I just talked about is 11.6 seconds. So if you really wanted to really crush this section, you are going to have to really, really crush it to make any benefit there. This area that is very, very doable here for you to go a little bit harder is that section from 17 to 20 miles right through there. It's going to save you a whopping 9.26 seconds if you do that. So again, know where to go harder in order to make your race priorities really match up. Okay. So once you are riding within your limits, but it's also going to be hard, once you are doing that, then things are going to be a lot easier for you later on. Because for the last big section of our race, we're going to have headwinds, tailwinds, crosswinds, and you're really going to be at the mercy of the weather system that's going through at that point. We do have an elevation loss of 1,400 feet, but also a gain of 711. And here, you really need to have the legs, okay? A very, very common fault for athletes during this point in time is for the cadences to bloom up exponentially. So it's not uncommon to see cadences in this section of 100 plus for miles and miles and miles. You really want to avoid that, believe it or not. You're going to be working a lot harder than you need to, and you want to just stay within your normal cadence ranges as much as possible. There's going to be cases where you can't, but as much as possible, you really want to stay within those cadence ranges that you've been training and focusing on and leading up to up until this point. So don't get suckered into that. There's also going to be a couple of flyers out here. Let them fly. Let them go. Okay? Let them blow up their legs. They're going to be really, really pushing the pace, and that is another pro and con. Think back to that swim that we talked about earlier. How beneficial is it going to be if you really, really motor those last 6 miles through this section right through here? Probably not super beneficial for you. You know, a lot of cons can happen here. So again, make sure you're going fast, but make sure you're not forcing the fastness, if you know what I mean. And again, once you get above that 32 miles an hour, I mean, you really have to weigh, like, is it beneficial for me to overcome that air resistance more at this point? So again, keep the pedals turning, but don't let the cadence balloon up like massively. Okay, keep it within your ranges and use that cadence to help get you down some of these hills. And again, you're going to be battling some headwinds, some crosswinds. This is going to be the windiest point out on course here for you. And if we go back to our best bike split here, we do have some weather right through here. We have a new tab, which is precipitation, which is really cool. We also have these areas right through here, which is the bottom that we're talking about. And again, the typical wind speed is about 5, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour through this point. But again, it's going to come at you more. It's going to be the end of the bike course. So depending on how you rode that first half, you might pay for it later on, even though the bike course is technically easier after that. And again, we do have that one last hill that everyone's talking about right through here, 250 feet of elevation gain and an average grade of 4. And look, we only have a max grade of 4.5% right here, and it comes right at the very end. So you really got to be ready for that. But again, it doesn't last for an aggressive amount of time. We're talking 2.5, 3 miles there. So you got to be ready for those things, and you got to be ready for the downhills. Carry the speed through when you can, and this is going to be a fun bike course. Ignore that 1% unpaved there. So that is the bike course in a nutshell. Other key things that we did not talk about are some of the aid stations out on course. The trash bin is water, which is located up here. That is at the top notice that that is only water there. So after those first 20 Ks, you have a water opportunity. I would argue you need to do it. Make sure you cool yourself off, top your water sources off there, because you are getting ready to climb back up, and you do have your first real aid station right at about 38 Ks through there. You have your next one right before that big hill that we talked about here, right at 60, let's call it 66, 67 Ks right through there. And then that is it. So there's really only, let's call it, 2 full aid stations out on the course with 1 additional water stop right there. So make sure you are utilizing all of these aid stations out here. I argue that they are all essential on this race course. So if you blow through it, you miss one, you might want to think about just touching the brakes, stopping, and then carrying on. Because if you say get your water and then you skip this one, the first real aid station you will encounter is at 66 Ks, which is a long time without any food, especially if you do have the run coming up, which is us. So, run course, again, this is a bit of a unique one. We have a 3-loop run course. This is an example of the run course as best as I could get it for us. We have about 240 feet of elevation gain, maybe a little bit less because it is on the major road portion, and if you look at mine, it is not. But it is located on the major road out through there. And again, if we bounce back to these aid stations, we have a ton of opportunities. So, when we go back, let's go back to our swim because you can actually see this a little bit better here. So we go out on our run, right? We exit the transition through here, take a left, and then we go on the run course right here. We actually curl down past this point in time, and then we pass the transition as well. We go all the way down and then all the way back up. And when we come back up, we will zigzag around this point, and we will, once we do this, out back here, we come back here and we run literally right past the finish chute before we curl back for our second and third loop. Because this is an out and back section, or excuse me, because this is an out and back race, you are going to have a lot of egos flying on that first loop for sure, okay? But you really need to keep those egos in check, especially on the first loop. You need to just establish your legs probably till you get to the first turnaround right at the bottom here. After that, that's where your real racing starts. You have your Red Bull area if you are into that kind of stuff at the very beginning. You also have an aid station after this point in time here, right? And you have a second one happening right through here as well. So you have 2 opportunities on each loop, and they are probably going to be on either side of the race course. So you have ample opportunities to get some aid. There is no excuse for underfueling here at all. We do have a lot of opportunities. Now, once we get past this first loop of the run, then the real racing starts. That second loop is going to be where the major movers happen, and that third loop is going to be where you kind of put the finalizing of your placing there. When you do have courses like this, it has a lot of opportunity for the cream to rise to the top, because you can see where everybody is at all times on these out and back courses. If you are seeing someone that you want to catch, or someone with a high vis kit or whatever, use them as a guideline. Pick out 4, 5, 6 of them if you can, and see if you are actively losing places or gaining places on them, and use that as a motivator. Okay. Fuel. It's going to be the big key to the race here. It's not aggressively lumpy here, but again, you will be going and doing some ups and downs for sure on this race course, but it's not going to be super aggressive for the most part. There might be a couple of areas where there are some hills, but for the most part, you're really confounded to what you did on the swim and the bike to set this run up for success, and that's going to be the major key here. So if you had a lot of fun on the bike course during this section right through here, and you totally just skied the cadence, and you are actively trying to get into transition as fast as possible with 110 RPM cadence, your run's probably not going to go great. Okay, use your cadence here on the bike to set yourself up for the run. That's going to be a big key here. It's going to be a fun day. Let me know if you have any questions, and